So, what all do you know about North and South Korea? Sorry, I'm eating too.
I don't know a lot, truthfully. I knew there was the
hmm
Korean War,
hmm
and so there was the split between the two, making them separate countries at that point.
Right.
Both sides want to reabsorb the other for different reasons.
hmm
There's not much more that I know about the dynamic than that.
Okay, yeah. Basically, one side is North Korea. It's backed by basically like Soviet influence, Chinese influence. The South side is American influence.
Yeah,
And we've seen this before, right? Like, look at what was it? Germany, East West Berlin, East West Germany, right? One
right.
side's outlined, the other side is Soviet influenced. That border between them, right? It's not just any regular old border, right? Do
Yeah.
you know, like, do you know about the DMZ,
Remind me what it stands for.
Demilitarized Zone?
Yes. So that's the spot where there are soldiers for both sides, kind of
Mhm.
like making sure that nobody can cross that border.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, they took that border, right, and then they move out a couple miles from either side, and then there's like no one can be there. Barbed wire walls, landmines, kind of deal. You know, it's a no man's land. It's like trench warfare. You know,
Yeah.
this is no man's land. Don't go here. There's like various outposts on either side, but there's also this place that's like basically there's just this little center. It was called the Joint Security Agency. No, Joint Security Area. My bad. The JSA. And so basically, both sides of Korea, like North and South Korean soldiers, as well as American soldiers, they just this is everybody can be here. And there's been like stuff has broken out here, of course, but one really important thing, aside from everybody being here, if you look near KPA4, it says like Bridge of No Return by CP3 KPA8.
Yeah, and then the location of the popular tree and axe murders.
That yes. So the Bridge of No Return. That's actually how North and South would exchange prisoners. It's called the Bridge of No Return because they would ask they take you up to the bridge and it's like, okay, do you want to go to North or South? Pick. And once you pick, that's it. You don't come back.
Yeah.
This bridge actually is in disrepair now. I think there's a different bridge that's used, or at least North Korea has a different bridge now. Because this one, the U.S. was like, "Hey, we'll fix it. I know it's looking bad," and North Korea was like, "No, don't touch it. I like it this way." You know. So like, this isn't the only incident. Like along the DMZ, there's been things that happen, especially in the JSA. There's been other like outbreaks of violence.
Yeah.
There are rules here, of course. Go figure, right?
Right.
Um, but believe it or not, not everybody is unarmed. It's like
Okay.
there can only be uh, like a few dozen people in this area, and out of those, only a handful are actually allowed to have like a pistol. Everybody else is unarmed. But there are like armed officers. And I mean, it doesn't really take a whole lot. At one point, there was a American soldier, U.S. Army Major Henderson. Now, given I mean what North Korea says is not going to be what happens, go figure. But they're also wrong. So, U.S. Army Major's kind of chilling. I don't remember what started it, but he gets approached by someone from the North Korean side and kind of instigates a fight. And a fight breaks out, and I think they like broke his arm or like crushes like windpipe or something crazy because he gets taken
Ooh.
to the hospital and everything. And there's been like deaths and stuff because what is it? I think recently 2015, two South Korean soldiers were wounded by stepping on a landmine on the South Korean side, supposedly planted, of course, by North Korean forces. Very much, in recent history kind of thing. Funnily enough, the landmine incident is what restarted the propaganda campaigns. So basically, since like the creation of the DMZ, they like set up loudspeakers on both sides and they just like yelled propaganda at each other.
I
Um,
remember this.
and so it was about 20 years ago actually they stopped the first time. Like 20 years ago they were like, fine, all right, we'll stop with the propaganda broadcasts. And then the landmine happened and they were like, all right, fine, we're putting the loudspeaker back up. In fact, we're buying a new one. So they get a new stereo and they set it up and they're like blasting propaganda back at them. And actually, it was 4 years ago. They took down the loudspeakers.
For the second time.
Yes. There was also a flagpole thing. So on the southern side of the DMZ, South Korean government built a basically 100-meter tall flagpole, and they put a big flag on it. That weighed almost 300 pounds. And so North Korea was like, okay, fine. And they put up a flagpole that was 150 meters tall. And they put a 600-pound flag on it.
Okay.
And the North Korean flagpole is actually, believe it or not, the fourth tallest one in the world.
I would believe that. Did South Korea make a bigger one?
No, that was it.
That is unfortunate.
North Korea won the flag war.
I was hoping for 5 flags in quick succession. Like, here's my 2,000-pound flag.
Yeah. So there was a brief flagpole war
on the mile-long flagpole.
But anyways, yeah. So the whole length of the DMZ is covered with checkpoints on either side, right? And it's like, okay, well, this is so that both sides can watch each other. And the thing about watching each other is, in order to see somebody, you need line of sight, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the tree comes in. There was a tree that was blocking a sight line, and he wanted all to be open. And it's not the first time vegetation's been cleared. Both sides cleared vegetation before. So they were like, well, that tree's in the way. We're going to go cut it down. It shouldn't really be a big deal. We've done it before. They've done it before.
Yeah.
So they get some guys together, and they're like, all right, let's go cut down this tree. And they get delayed because the weather was bad. They're like, all right, we'll get them next time. And so the second time they go out, I think it was just like a couple of U.S. officers. I think there was like a captain and a first lieutenant, and the captain is Captain Boniface. And so this guy has been in Korea for a while. In fact, he was on the last stretch to retirement. He was out. He was going to be out in a week, done with Korea, served his time, right? Yeah, a couple of Americans and a handful of Korean personnel. They go and they're like, we're going to cut down this tree. They get there. They start to like cut down the branches, prune it and everything. And North Korean soldiers pull up and they're like, what do you think you're doing? That's our tree. In fact, our leader planted it. Not only did he plant it, but he tends to it too. That's his tree that you're cutting down. They're like, no, it's not. Like, shut up. We're going to cut it down. It's in the way. And he's like, no, you can't cut down our leader's tree. It's his tree, which is Cap, I'm sure. The North Korean officer, let's see, Senior Lieutenant Pak Chol, who had a nickname, Lieutenant Bulldog.
Ah, okay. I see where this is going.
He's just like, throwing out threats. Stop or I'm going to, basically he's like, stop it or I'm going to kill you. So Boniface is like, well, no, you're not going to kill me. I've been here for how long? And you've been saying that since I was here. Because they're always just like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you one of these days. They're always yelling at each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So he's like, no, don't stop cutting the tree down. Just cut the tree down. It's the same stuff that we go through every day. So they keep going. And then our boy, Lieutenant Bulldog's like, you know what? Fine. And he sends a guy off to go get more troops. And they come back. They bring, a couple dozen more North Korean troops. And they get out, and they all have, like, weapons. Not firearms. They all have, like, weapons, like crowbars and stuff.
Oh.
And they're like, stop it. You stop now. The U.S. side's like, no, we're not going to stop. We're cutting down the tree. And so our boy, Bulldog, is like, all right, fine. Well, I guess I warned him. And he's like, all right, go kill him. So the North Korean soldiers charge the South Korean personnel, U.S. Officers, and that's where this is where it pops off. The fight ensues.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Our martyr for the story, Boniface, he gets surrounded by maybe a dozen dudes, and they just beat him to death. Literally, just beat him to death.
Oh,
The Tremors, they leave. They just drop the axe and the like shears or whatever they were using. They book it out. So after they were fighting for a little bit, I mean, this actually didn't even go on for more than a minute. It
I'm
was that
sure.
short of an initial encounter. The South Korean side, they're able to get the North Koreans off of the American captain, and they put him in the truck and they leave. But there was a second American, right? Nowhere to
Yeah.
be found. It turns out he like hopped a little wall and he was like hiding in a ditch, like waiting for it to go over, but basically trying not to just get beaten to death like his superior just did.
Yes.
Everybody gets back and there's a the like a debrief, I guess, however you want to get to the point, and they're like, hey, we're missing that guy. Where's the lieutenant?
Right.
And they're like,
uh.
oh, you know what, he sure isn't here.
Oh
We
my
should go find him.
gosh.
So they send out like a rescue team, and from one of the checkpoints, they're like, we've been watching North Koreans do some weird stuff right here at this ditch. They'll like come and they'll just go in this ditch for a little bit, and then they'll come out and hand an axe to another one, and then that guy will go into a ditch for a little bit and come out, pass the baton on, and they just kind of do this thing where they trade off this weapon and go sit in a ditch for a little bit. So they get there and they find out that the other American officer was in that ditch and they were just beating him to death.
Yeah.
He was still alive and he died on the way to the hospital.
Oh, that's rough.
And so they're like, okay, well, we have a problem now.
Exactly.
I did talk about how like some people are armed, right? And
Yes.
I believe there were a couple of people armed with pistols at the incident, but it's very, very strict regulation on sidearm use. You can't use a fight because like fist fights happen. It's happened before.
Sure. Fist
Dozens
fights
of
happen.
dozens of people have died on either side from outbreaks of
Hmm.
violence. Now this was, of course, a bit extra, right?
Indeed. Indeed.
But no one fired their weapon, and it's like, okay, well, why didn't you just shoot them? And it's because, well, there's very, very strict rule of engagement. You can only fire your weapon if fired upon, or if you can save a life. But the conclusion is, well, we assumed he was already dead, therefore we didn't fire a weapon, right? And it's like, all right, that makes
Yeah.
sense, fair
Sure.
enough. Because at that point, you can't save the life anymore. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So after the incident, North Korea put out a statement around like 10 o'clock, 10 to noon today. American imperialist aggressors sent a dozen hoodlums with axes into the JSA to cut down trees. Work which should have been mutually consented beforehand.
Now, it is my understanding that the work has never been mutually consented, and that they just cut down trees on both sides.
Uh-huh. And clear
Okay.
vegetation on both sides.
All right.
And so they're like, okay, we sent 4 North Korean personnel to warn them and say, don't do this. Against our persuasion, they, the United States and South Korean forces, attacked our guards and committed a provocative act, beating our men, wielding murderous weapons, and depending on the fact that they outnumbered us.
But didn't they not even have injuries?
Our guards could not but resort to self-defense measures under the
Oh my
circumstances.
God.
So they basically just flipped the entire thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally just team swapped. North Korea got auto balanced, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And this just causes like an uproar amongst like U.S. military officers and soldiers. The
Of
soldiers
course.
want blood,
Naturally.
fair enough, and the officers are the ones that they have to try and keep a cool head, but they're like, well, we can't just let them walk over us.
Exactly.
But also, we want to start World War III. Therefore, let's think about this for a minute. There's actually, let me see if I can find this quote. General Stilwell, he presented 3 military school solutions. 1, do nothing.
Naturally.
2,
Yes.
start World War III.
Okay.
Or 3, we gotta just do something meaningful. So we went with option 3.
Yes.
So we start planning the mission. It's called Operation Paul Bunyan.
Okay, I appreciate that.
What a good name. They're
Yes.
like, all right, Operation Paul Bunyan, we're planning it now. So there's this really fine balance they're trying to find. The ultimate objective is we want to cut down the tree. And we want to have a show of force to the point to where North Korea shouldn't try anything stupid, while at the same time not outright starting World War III.
Right.
Land, sea, and air is all utilized in this. Within 3 days of the failure of the second attempt, I believe it was just a few days later, is how long it takes to plan, prepare, and execute Paul Bunyan for his crimes against humanity.
Paul Bunyan's crimes against
Paul
humanity?
Bunyan. They're going to execute Paul Bunyan.
Okay.
So Operation Paul Bunyan entails, let's see, I have the numbers in this document. Half of this thing is blacked out, go figure, but I do have numbers in here.
Redacted.
There's so much redacted. It's funny because it'll just be a page with a big black square on it because the entire page is redacted. Okay, you know that Rick and Morty, like, yeah, what is it? In and out. What is it? In and out, 20 minutes.
In and out, 20-minute adventure. Let's go. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the plan is in and out, 45-minute adventure. Let's go.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that they're going to be using, they have F-4 squadrons from Okinawa.
Okay.
F-111 squadrons from the U.S. that they're going to rebase in Korea and use, and they're also deploying B-52s from Guam.
Nice.
And aircraft carriers.
Wow.
In addition to like armored divisions.
They don't even need to cut down the tree. They can just fire at it with the tank and blow it out from the root.
They did actually have tanks that were like positioned on like footbridges and stuff, and it's like, all right, well, if you guys try and cross the bridge, we have it wired to explode, and there are tanks on it.
Yeah.
So cross it, because if the explosives don't do it, this tank shell will.
Exactly.
Let's see here. Do you know the DEFCON system 1 through 5?
Roughly. So that's like wait, don't say it yet. I know it's like 3 words, and then the middle word is missing. It's something along the lines of like defense condition.
Yeah.
And so like the closer I get, DEFCON 1 is like World War III.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So it's the defense readiness condition. And so yeah, one is war. Nuclear war happened right now.
Yes.
This incident is one of a few incidents where we were in DEFCON 3. Other instances of DEFCON 3 are 9/11 and like what is it, Yom Kippur War, and
Right.
This incident right here. And I think
Of
there's
the
only
tree.
like one. I think there's only one time we were in DEFCON 2, and
That
it
was
the
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm. So that's how big of a deal this was. We were like, all right, DEFCON 3, let's just get ready. We might have war.
Okay.
It's all underlined, except apparently, like, military personnel don't know how to underline things. Let me send you a picture of this.
Okay.
Kind of underlined.
That looks like me underlining things in high school. Like,
so like the parts that I'm looking for are underlined for me, but they're also strike throughs. So it's like,
yes.
the people we're sending in, it's called Task Force Viera.
All right.
60 people. I think it was 60 armed guards, a dozen like engineers. So like the engineers had like chainsaws.
Yeah.
And they spent the whole night before practicing their chainsaws so that they knew how to use a chainsaw, because I guess they don't know how to use a chainsaw.
Okay.
It seems pretty straightforward, but I've not used a chainsaw, so
No, yeah, I mean, same.
I've only ever done it the analog way.
To be fair, if you're in DEFCON 3, you want to make sure you do the chainsaw right. I mean...
So
That would,
there's,
that would be disappointing if the guy didn't know how to use a chainsaw.
and it's like, cool. Now, how do we cut the tree down now that we're here?
Right?
We only got 40 minutes. Is there a manual? There's pretty decent amount of South Korean like special forces. The South Korean soldiers are unarmed because
Yeah.
again, really strict on the firearms. They're unarmed, but they're also like specialists in Taekwondo. So like they're pretty capable.
I was taking a drink of water. Was not ready for.
They'll be able to hold their own, I'm sure, if a fist fight breaks out.
How many black belts you got?
7? Awesome. You're
Bring
in.
them in.
I'm pretty sure they have like some like logistics trucks, and so the thing is, may or may not have broken a rule here because those trucks may or may not have had sandbags that may or may not have been just laying on top of guns.
Okay.
So like the U.S. force gets there and they start unloading these sandbags and pulling out M16s and grenade launchers, and they just start handing them out. So, and I mean, I'm pretty sure there was also like they had like machine gun emplacements that they were setting up and everything. They were very well intended on cutting this down. In fact, some of the Korean special forces, they had basically claymores strapped to their chest, and they were standing at the bridges like, "Come on, cross the bridge."
Come on. That's baller. What?
Like, yeah, but we're here to send a message. It actually quoted like basically saying like we need to send a message to North Korea. And so in addition to the people who are there on the ground, there's like 30 helicopters.
Wow.
And the thing is with the helicopters and the planes, they have them like circling around the DMZ like near it, so that their presence is like known. So there's like helicopters, and these helicopters are loaded with infantry companies, and there's attack helicopters, the Cobra attack helicopters, and then just outside of the DMZ, there's even more ground troops. 12,000 Korean troops.
They did not need this many people to cut down a tree. Show of force or not.
A couple thousand Marines from Okinawa. There's
Right.
like artillery there. They would take these giant like howitzer artilleries. I'm just saying howitzer, but I don't know what actually artillery pieces they were. And they had the North Korean artillery outnumbered 4-1. There were AC-130s lined up nose to tail. Just a handful of AC-130s just waiting, what if?
This is like the special ops equivalent of I'm not touching you.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
just a finger right in front of their face. Come on.
Yes. Oh, are we ready for the cherry on top?
Yes.
Are you sure you're ready for the cherry on top?
No, but go ahead.
Nuclear capable bombers. That's right, we have nuclear bombers.
What?
We have nuclear strategic bombers circling overhead.
And this is DEFCON 3.
Yes. DEFCON 3. DEFCON 3 is the ability to mobilize the Air Force in 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Therefore, it is DEFCON 3. There was supposedly a quote from Korean intelligence that they picked up in North Korean radio that said that the show of force was blowing their minds.
Nice.
And well, what are you going to do if you're North Korean? You see all this imperialist, United States pigs lining up on your DMZ. You're going to go get your own.
Yeah.
Within minutes, North Korean forces reacted. 5 vehicles brought an estimated 150 North Korean personnel carrying sidearms and AK-47s.
That is not enough.
They just sat there and they watched because they were like, we can't do anything. So they bust out 150 people and armed them, and they just watched. And so for the next 40 minutes, they slowly chainsaw every branch one at a time off of the tree, nice and slow. And
Yeah.
every time a branch hits the ground, it was just an uproar. Cheers. Every time.
Yeah.
Um,
Woo!
and they actually didn't cut the whole tree down. They cut down everything except for the stump. And there was just a tree stump. It's gone now. The stump is gone now, and there's a what's it called? It's like a placard
Yeah.
for the incident. There was weapon fire. A
Okay.
helicopter was fired upon by North Korean soldiers. It wasn't hit, I don't think. It was just that it was just shot at. So right there, I mean, World War III could have actually started right there,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They didn't fire back. So afterwards, we cut down the tree and we said like, all right, North Korea, you need to punish those people who were involved with the incident. And then later on, Kim Il Sung, that's Kim Jong Il's father, Kim Jong Un's grandfather.
Okay.
It is regretful that an incident occurred in the JSA. An effort must be made so that such incidents may not recur in the future. For this purpose, both sides should make efforts. We urge your side to prevent the provocation. Our side will
What?
never provoke first, but will take self-defense measures only when provocation occurs. This is our constant stand. So, we got that back and we were like, he doesn't know how to say I'm sorry, but this is close enough. We know what he wanted to say, but he can't say it fair enough.
Yeah.
After they cut down what they did of the tree, they actually took some of the wood that they collected from it and turned it into a walking stick, which
Nice.
gets passed down in ceremony to the generals in the JSA, like as they used
That's
it.
that's awesome.
Yep. So that's the more or less that's the lowdown. That's the summary of the time that the U.S. had to mobilize nuclear bombers in order to cut down a tree.
This really encompasses one of the big sayings I use in my life, which is it's the little things. It's about the little things.